Hola my lovers, it's MJ from Art Love TV. How are you? Thank you guys so much for your likes and subscribes and your shares and your bookings as well, your tarot bookings. And I newly have on the website, based on some requests, I have now some packages, some online coaching packages, which include online coaching, intuitive tarot, some online yoga. It's all very intuitive and organic, obviously. That's how we were intuish, le vibrashe. And at the same time, deeply transformational. So if you're on your spiritual awakening journey and you're looking for a little bit of assistance and your growth and dream making potentials, then feel free to check out ultralove.com. I'd be happy to see you there and respond to any of your requests or questions. So today's theme that's coming through to discuss is, why does truth hurt? And I'm talking about emotional pain usually. Oh, hey Heather, how are you? Emotional pain and how it impacts us. And often in our kind of 3D story, we talk about how love hurts. And I was noodling with that and thinking, well, it's not actually like the love. You know, love feels like love, and love always feels good, right? And yet there's a greater sense of truth. And you know, I'm sort of toying with this age of Aquarius being like an age of truth, right? And an age of transparency, and ultimately so that we can rise ourselves as a humanity, we can evolve, and truth has a big part in our ability to do that. And someone who's been on this spiritual awakening journey for a few decades now, it's apparent to me that it's the fact that as a collective, as a culture, as a species, for a certain historical context or framework, we've lived in denial of that truth. So if we've lived in denial for a couple thousands of years, it's likely that we have a few cycles of delayering those constructs, which led us and perpetuated a cycle of denial. So ultimately, the truth shall set you free, and as a human, this concept of truth would appear to cause us some level of emotional discomfort, because it is shining light on an aspect of ourselves which we are not honoring. And many of us have different ways of processing those so-called traumas. They are, to a certain degree, an emotional trauma, a cellular drama, because it's like putting part of our soul's essence outside of ourselves. It's giving an external construct more power than the divinity within. So to reclaim that divinity, in my book, The Fearless Life Guide, I call it the emotional storm. To reclaim our divinity, to really embody more of our soul's truth, the soul's potential, soul's essence, whatever words you want to use. It's just about feeling good and feeling better in who you are, and feeling confident enough to show up in the person that you are, almost regardless of what's going on, right? That's certainly been in both of my deep cyclical transformational sort of processes and life cycles. Each time I had to just keep going and keep going and keep going for quite a while before any of the circumstantial evidence appeared to confirm or affirm that I was on even the right path. It was just purely feeling, but this feels better, but this feels better. And going against the grain, and going against what people said about, you have to be practical, or you have to get real, or you have to do this, that, and the other. And that was just never, only because I'm somebody who's having had these awakenings. It was like my life path was like, I always had to follow my truth. And based on my direct experience, and I talk about it in the book, when we're not living our truth, and or actually I would say that's just par for the course. The way that I unlocked more of that potential was by observing emotional patterns. And the emotional patterns have, the awareness of the emotional patterns as an empath has really been part and parcel of setting me free from emotional abuse. And emotional abuse is a very, very, I think, kind of strong word, especially when it comes to our unconsciousness as a humanity. And I, you know, labels, I don't like labels anyway, and so it's certainly a nice feeling to just open ourselves up to be able to own and embrace when we ourselves are in an abuse cycle. But it doesn't necessarily you know, it's not about pointing fingers at abusers necessarily, because one could then acknowledge that any of us that are abusing, we are actually in trauma. We're actually in cycles of abuse ourselves, right? So if we have a greater awareness of healing, of really genuinely loving ourselves, then it's our responsibility to recognize our part in it, right? How we enable it, and to simply step back, you know, walk away, and you know, continue to follow the feel good flow, basically, because the more, I would say, truth you hold, the more authentic is your expression, and you naturally then continue to build momentum and feel better support systems show up, better better friendship showing up, better, you know. And it's not, again, it's like the words, it's not better or worse, it's just, it's a more powerful reflection of a greater potential that you've been following by following the feeling. It's so, the more you get into this sort of truth vibrashe, or like the more you love yourself, or the more authentic you become, or the more sort of oozing with your own intuitive elixir and divine flow, you really just don't bump up against the other. And if you do, if you recognize that you're still out working a pattern, it actually just gets easier to stay in your own personal integrity, and to not, here's the thing, is that we have to be able to hold space for the fact that the majority of humanity, and potentially obviously parts of ourselves included in that, like, we're not educated via truth. We're not, you know, we're undergoing a monumental global paradigm shift. Our entire species is evolving in some kind of monumental, beautiful, cosmic, divine consciousness flow. And really, the absolute paradox of it is, the more we let go of trying to control, the more we can allow that love, that cosmic love, essentially, to just carry us like the wings of a bird, you know, carry that vessel from A to B. Essentially, there's this sort of just continual breaking down and surrendering, so that the cosmic divine law can essentially just carry your life. And ultimately, like, I continue to be astounded by miracles, and like just resting into miracles, and at the same time profound gratitude, and recognize that the gratitude is an ongoing sense of being grateful for an existence, and radiating that, and at the same time this deeper integration into self-awareness, listening to the intuition, i.e. not falling back into maybe people-pleasing patterns, which are always these sort of subtle sneak type, sort of like, you know, who's doing what. And the more clear you become, the more obvious it'll become, because this whole sort of consciousness awakening thing and empowering yourself is simply listening to self, and not rationalizing where or analyzing where other people are, unless that's part of your service. And then people will pay for it, or people will, you know, buy certain things from you to warrant that kind of level of exchange. But otherwise, where other people are is truly divine for them. And if you're someone in this sort of truth seeking, or truth unveiling, you know, hero's journey, awakening path, whatever you want to call it, you will find your way. Your heart will guide you. And truly, there is no way outside of you. Like, there's no one person that's going to be like, this is the way. Because truth, again, the more deep I go, this idea of the Holy Grail is really just our own self. The idea of the second coming, or the return of Christ, is really just our own connection to that light, to that divinity. And the more we allow ourselves to embody our own personal truth, whatever that looks like, the more we are set free. And in a way, I say the more, it's almost like with each step, with each breath, it's one or the other. It's never, it's like, yeah, maybe I was a little bit, it's like, well, then you're not, because you either are in your divine alignment or you're not. And straight up legit, all any of us is ever doing is practicing that. Like, how am I feeling? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I thinking? How am I feeling? What am I thinking? And it's super juicy, because it's so amazing how vibrashe you can get with better practice in just imagination. hence like hala quartet energies. It's like, okay, maybe you want to go do this, maybe you want to do that, and you can't. And so it's like, oh my god, time to bring in the power of the imagination to just vision yourself into the next level excitement of your life's path. So I mean, I've got a whole bunch of juicy excitement happening over here, and again, that's part of what I sell and share on All to Love is like teaching y'all how to unplug from the mainstream, teaching y'all about conscious manifestation, veganism, you know, from a very non-judgmental perspective, because there's no one right way. Just somebody who's empowered my personal freedom through being who I want to be and being the change that I want to see. At the same time, within my own grace, allowing myself to love myself as much as I possibly can so that I can love people and be that kind of reflection. And it is fucking weird. All of this manifestation, spiritual awakening, mumbo dumbo humba. It's mind-blowingly weird. It's emotionally deep and super painful, and it never ends. And like, we're eternal, infinite beings having this finite experience, and it really is your own reality. It really, really, truly is. Holla! Holla! This is Andy P, everybody. Andy P's in the house. Holla! You've been, you were always on my mind. I felt like this serious. Hi, Kay, and not how are you? Nothing but endless pain. OMG. Heather, you feel me? You know, and I got to say after about, oh my gosh, like years of just like, what is love? What do you want from that? Like that. There's this new energy, new earth energy, and it is happening. I shall will it into existence. You know, it's just for a lot of us in these kinds of communities, it's just so obvious that the way we're being bought and sold this reality is a little bit like, no. How about we don't kill each other? How about we don't, you know, do just some of the just ickies? It's like, that's not cool, guys. Come on, let's be better. Which again, certainly in my book and my own personal practice, non-judgment is the juice, and it's always in the moment. In fact, presence is always in the moment. Anytime our mind is spinning around, we're not really in the present. Hence why truth hurts, not love. You know, the truth is something that hits us right here now, babies. And it's something, a truthful thing will often send shockwaves into our field. Part of the reason we practice things like meditation and mindfulness and yoga, things that help us be more present in our bodies, is that my understanding is when you're in, you know, heading down the path of doing profound emotional healing, it requires a certain amount of physical stamina to withstand an emotional storm. There's a lot of juicy wisdom and divinity and grace that comes via being able to sit and process those storms. But at the same time, you have to kind of surrender your life to it, because it doesn't, certainly these last few years as I've continued to surrender, you know, I wake up at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning and I broadcast on YouTube, and I might spend 3 or 4 hours of my daytime processing emotions. Holla! Like, as in, it's so glamorous, like lying down and feeling. Part of it is an awareness of feeling into the collective pain body. Part of it is an awareness of my own personal healing to continue to transform unworthiness and shame and pain and guilt. And of course, it's you know, and here's the thing, in the false light programming around like selfless service and, you know, being in service to other, straight up legit, that's been my path for 20 years, and I'm finally breaking free from that, realizing the only true service is service to self from the heart. When you're in service to your own heart and the heart of the whole, then everything that you desire is in divine service. Everything that you want to do and flow and how you want to be and how you show up, regardless of how weird or wonderful or big or small that it looks, that is your service to the world. Your joy, your peace, your flow, your love, your beauty, your radiance, like, or your snotty face, or your pimply back, whatever it might be. The way that you learn how to love yourself is a service to the whole of humanity, because that is the rise of our consciousness, you know, and there's the discernment piece forever and ever for the empath. It's listening and tuning to your own heart as a primary connection, and ultimately mostly not listening to other people's thoughts unless they resonate in your heart field. If people's thinking or projecting or whatever around you is like corrupting your own heart space, step back, Jedis, step back, get connected to your heart, trust your flow. I'm really increasingly aware of that. Like, yeah, keep going down that tunnel for self. As in, I'm now at this point of stand, and I'm very dominant cardinal energy, so I am naturally, in my natal chart, you would say naturally kind of leader vibrashe, as in I want to do it on my own, I want to, I want to pioneer it. And so if you resonate even on that level, other people's thoughts and feelings and projections are not likely to align with yours, because yours are very, well, your own. And I think we're all meant to get to that point, in fairness, regardless of a leader or a follower, blah blah, because we all play all those different parts at different times in our lives, right? In effect, the only self that can know the self is the self. So all of us getting up in each other's business, or like, I know how to, well, it's like, ooh, because the healing is within the self and the truth of self. And that's why when stuff hits us on an emotional level, it is worthy of our attention, because it's in our light filled attention that we can then discern, is this energy serving me? Is this exchange truly benevolent, or is there some wiggy washy thought vibration? As in, holding space as an empath, and then discerning, where people are coming from, what people's intentions are, basically behind the projected, whatever somebody's wanting to project, right? Because we all do that. We all, to a certain degree, are wanting to project something, hala, which is also part of this community, and my desire to open up and be really honest, about all the shades and shackles and shit. Twin spirited forum, holla, bon appetit, my friend. Heather, me too. A year and 2 years, 3 years. I've actually been on my own for a while now, and some really deep, profound heart healing to get into the space where I'm genuinely like good in myself, and I'm not like, I need different, it's just different. Not that it was like that before, because I was a strong, I don't know. It's still, this is like a whole other story. Let's be honest here. Welcome back. I allowed a man to control my emotions to the point I lost myself. Heather, sister. And it's the empathic community. I'm meeting men and women alike who, based in either karmic or childhood patterning, that's been our way. Like, I'm not worthy, so I'll just focus on my man. I'll focus on the other people in my life, and I'll make them feel good, and I'll give them all the attention, and I'll give, right? And so that's, hence why we meet here in these online, authentic, empathic communities, where it's like, oh my goodness, like, what is life? Because it's quite conundrum-like and mind-blowing, and at the same time, in our soul, very deeply affirming, very deeply like, I see you, and I see that pure heart, and I feel it, and I understand where you're coming from and how weird it all is. Because we were taught, like, just go to school, do good, and get a job, and get married, and then all is well. That was all. That was it. That was the kind of program we're like, right. And then all of us at different points in our journey are like, what the fuck is this? And like nothing goes to plan, and your ego gets just broken down, and then if you're still alive, your heart is like, what the actual fuck is happening? Oh, hello. And it's like love. The love is there. It's just that the ego has to kind of break down on multiple occasions to open the heart space and be willing to process the trauma that requires, hence the truth. You are the creator of your reality. What we usually want to remain in denial of is that. No, I'm not. I didn't create that shit. That fucking sucks ass. That's his issue. He's a dick. Or, what in me has been attracting these cycles of abuse? What in me? You know, fuck, we can't control other people. So our even blaming and attacking has a sense of like remaining under the illusion of control. Like we're these powerless empathic victims who just continue to attract these cray cray narcissists. And that's not really, to me anyway, from beyond, from paradigm shift quantum field awareness, that potentially can still keep us limited. That level of sort of feeling and thinking and projecting. And yet, at the same time, I'd honor it because it can be part of our healing. 2 years ago, when I was in it, there was a lot of that stuff going on as I tried to outwork why the hell were people being so harsh and not even seeming to want to acknowledge my pain or anything, and just like I was dead, and that anything that I would say would just not even, and I was, anyway. See that like at that point you just have to walk away from people, places, and things. If it's just continuing to just get more and more confusing and more explosive or more intense, it's best just to walk away, because it's more than likely we're in a cycle of abuse. And that simply means that one person is used to being self-responsible. So usually like people who are kind of born and raised empath and who have been aware of their intuition and their emotions and have been processing emotions and endeavoring to be conscious of their thoughts and feelings and be responsible and blah, blah, blah for a long time, it's more than likely you're the one who's going to have to leave, because that situation means that we're still attracted due to our own sense of self-worth, which is a lack of self-worth, a deep core wound of unworthiness. We tend to attract people, and we want to do good by them and we want to treat them so good, but then eventually, as we continue to rise the collective energies, those relationships can't withstand anymore. As in, the so-called narcissists in this situation are also being asked to be responsible for their thoughts and feelings. So when we are in those loops, it's likely that the one who's self-responsible is also trying to take responsibility for somebody else's thoughts and feelings who isn't being honest about their thoughts and feelings, which is why on an emotional level you're like, what the fuck, or end up walking on eggshells or blah blah. And then hence, so we can start breaking free from these, and in my personal experience, it could happen again and again. So we have to be really diligent with your self-work, with your self-love, with your ability to really keep owning and transforming the stuff that you're attracting, the people you're attracting, until, you know, I'm not, because I'm not really into the twin flame, to, you know, I don't like to label things ultimately, although I've been throwing labels out the whole time. That's fine. I'm a walking contradiction, aren't we all? What is life? Ultimately, the one thing that I can say, like, I almost, there was a time when I almost thought this feeling of like desiring to be in a relationship would never go away. And yet it's not that I'm not open to connection and like, and love in that regard, but I can recognize that I've dissolved some program that I inherently feel is based in control, domination, and unworthiness, which is why we often recognize that people in romantic relationships can end up limited or limiting one another, limiting themselves in kind of a codependent structure, which means that we're not yet anchored in sovereignty. And paradigm shift energy, certainly for those of us called to that sort of energetic landscape, we're being asked to live in sovereignty. We're being asked to be self-sustainable, regenerative creators, which means that the one being is here now responsible for her body, for her finances, for her blah blah, for her all of it, right? And there again, the clearer this channel becomes, the more obvious it is like where other people are. And yet again, I can say I'm super duper liberated by the fact that I don't have to like get up in people's business, like noodling and giving that extra bit to you know, try to help people out or whatever. That's not my job. And also I now look back at that and see it as a weird, again, kind of like a weird low level like distraction, you could say. Like I can say it at this point after some deep processing over the weekend, and the Gemini new moon mushroom ceremony represent. Holla! But yeah, like, the when you really start building momentum in owning and transforming your emotions, your life is wild and weird, but it is supported and guided. Like, you guys know, and you guys who've been with me, you've seen it. Like, you've witnessed just how intense and deep, but at the same time totally supported. Divine people show up, helpers show up, people, yeah, show up to help. And ultimately, the more you trust your flow, the more you can be your flow, and those better reflections will show up, and then you'll continue to be guided. And right now we're in this really potent kind of intuitive phase of the collective rising, because it's really, it's just exciting. It's exciting to have this clarity to, and space, and this kind of collective pause to really, really focus on what we're being asked to create ultimately, without judgment, right? That's the thing about ego stuff. It's like non-judgment, just from that pure place of love and truth, knowing your truth, knowing that's your heart's desire. And then as things continue to grow and manifest in your life, if it's not going quite right, or if it doesn't feel quite right, keep doing that emotional work, because the truth does set us free. It would just appear like, as a humanity, we all have these sort of processes, like this sort of whole bunch of shit we have to go through to then start really tapping that truth, and then tap a 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 tap of the truth, and then you're walking in the truth. And then just more and more of your dominant field, your dominant energy is living that truth. And it is visceral and tangible. And honestly, if you're not feeling it, you're probably not living it yet either. So it's just that. It's just that. Holla. Holla, 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 holla. Oh, girl. Hey, Heather, you can go online and research all that. Because I don't know, because I'm not, the bits that I've dipped in and out of, I res with some aspects of what the twin flame journey talks about, and yet I don't, obviously, I don't resonate with some aspects of it. And and again, because everybody has all these different ideas or different senses of it, there's different levels of awareness, even when it comes to the construct of a twin flame journey. I've had a couple major relationships, and I'm really just at a point where I'm finally getting this momentum of, I'm just enjoying loving myself as the weird, weird human that I am. you know? That's all. It's like, is that okay? Yeah. Holla. Oh, and like getting certain life things sorted out, you know what I mean? Can we never even talk about this ever? Let's talk about buying snake furs. I love you guys a lot, a lot, a lot, and I love you. In the I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna tomorrow or the next day or maybe later today. The lighting is a little bit weird here, but hey ho, I am gonna endeavor to finish the monthly readings before the end of the month. So keep an eye out for that, my loves, and feel free to book some intuitive tarot or have a look. I've put on a new, so there's now 3 different packages. If you're wanting to implement some self-love ritual or just have more one-to-one time. So you can have a look at the different packages. I think the first 2 are like a month, it's sort of like a month intensive to really get some new habits going, or have a chat and figure out how to anchor those. And then I've put a whole year package, which is like a kind of a big one for me, as far as like I've had about 4 substantial year-long clients who have really successfully shifted or lost weight or transitioned to veganism or whatever changes they've made. And really based on that positive feedback and the fact that I'm now finishing up, I've got 2 clients who I'm finishing up that package with, which means I do have space for one or two more year long. So that's the total transformation package, which again, you'll see it when you visit All to Love. I think it's online packages or maybe online coaching on ultralove.com/online coaching. Anywho, you can message me if you're interested. Otherwise, you guys have a glorious day. Really nice to see you here as per usual. And you guys just keep loving yourselves. And I look forward to meeting you in the physical 3D reality one day, ideally in Jamaica, Hawaii, somewhere really beautiful. Um, yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm really looking toward end of the year, autumn, December time. And yet, let's be honest, I'm going to have to wait and see what's happening with the airlines and all that. And thank you, Rochelle. Let's meet up in Rochelle's backyard. I'm down with that. In fact, that would be something I would definitely be up for. Is like having a retreat, say somewhere in North America, or that way, and then doing a little bit of a tour. Although let's be honest, winter isn't necessarily the best time to drive through North America. Been there, done that a couple times actually. And it's a little bit dodgy, getting caught in snow blizzards and shit. Anywho, there you go. Lovely to meet you guys here. Thanks as always for being with me and supporting Ultra Love Mesh and supporting love, like more love on the planet. That's how I see it, Avi. When you support Ultra Love, you support more love. That's a win-win for everybody. Oh, I know Wisconsin. I think I drove through that state. Is that the state? I think it is. I'm not really great with geography, but I've been to lots of places. Hey, thanks, Andy. Oh, good to know, Chica. So that's spot on for your Cancer energies. And that's all I've done. Oh, I think I did Leo this morning, actually. So I've only done the 3, 10 more to go. And again, if you're new here, you guys, I do the 13th signs. So I include a fucus because Ultra Love is, the way I'm looking at it now is like this community is aligned with the 13th moon cycle, which is like the 5D interpretation of timestamp frequency versus the Gregorian calendar, which is 12. Yeah, and it's the daylight savings. It's like it's like a limited, timestamp. So we evolve that to the 13th moon cycle and become more intuitive, more emotionally aware, and ultimately we transition to live in the natural cycles. So once again, we reconnect to source, we reconnect to the planet, so that we live in wholeness and service to self, which is the planet. Our body is the body of Earth. So if we're not, as we learn to look after our own bodies, we then naturally we learn how to integrate and intuit how the Earth is asking us to take care of her too. It's one and the same ultimately. So holla, get your soulful freaks on. Get your ultra love freak on. I love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you real soon. Take care. Peace out.